This one's gonna be again about Tim Ferriss' Tool of Titans. I guess it actually is Tools of Titans, but never fucking mind. And with that being said, hello and welcome back to the next episode of the Self-Development with Tactics fucking podcast. And I'm extremely pumped to be here because I just like what I'm doing here. I just really fucking love what I'm doing here. Sometimes it's, still you're not feeling like actually recording an episode. Today it's completely the fucking opposite. Today I'm just so looking fucking forward to actually making this episode. It's just enormously kind of crazy. But yeah, especially because I kind of feel like that Tim Ferriss' Tools of Titans is actually a pretty great book, also to go through. And whatsoever I've been thinking and or talking about it, I think just often enough. But I do just have to see, and also I do have to turn on my fucking monitor. Or actually TV. It is more like a TV than a monitor, but so that I do just have this light above me. Because without this light, I'm fairly dark, to be honest. But yeah, I do just have a look and see where I have stopped. And I do also have to give you here you are. Here you are. Now it's there. And I think it's quite fine, I guess. Could be better. Could be way worse. But yeah, I think it's good. I really think it is good. So, start a habit with a tiny push. And being away from hotspots, I do think this is where we actually stopped yesterday, and is also going to be where I'm going to start today, kind of obviously. But yeah, I do think that I'm just going to start reading it, and I'm expecting there to be just something extremely great, and I'm not going to waste your fucking time this time, and I'm actually going to go ahead. So, being away from hotspots. Not in the hotspot for your career, don't worry. This can give you other advantages to compensate. For example, a useful concept if you're not in the Bay Area and you're building a startup. So this is a useful concept if you're not in the Bay Area and you're building or trying to build a startup. This helps surmount the excuse of I don't have X or I'm not in location Y, so I can't start, which is definitely bullshit. Especially in this fucking era, or in the fucking era that we are right now, it got just way easier to start something. And I think I've been talking about it in the last day's episode as well, in terms of actually the whole music business. And everybody is able to make music. And everybody is just able to do the same exact thing as I'm doing, which is going through some content or going through some books, talking about it, recording it and uploading it to YouTube. Basically everybody can do it, as long as your internet is, well enough and whatsoever. There are some factors that might make it a little bit tougher and a little bit more harder. But you can still just do it, no matter who you are, at least you're somehow handicapped or something. But, principally, everyone is able to do this. And I find this is, first of all, very great, but for sure there is going to be a lot of competition. And this is exactly the same thing that I was talking about yesterday with the music thing. Everybody can start rapping, but of course there's going to be a lot of competition, which is I do think if you're just, seriously enough about it, all this competition is still going to be a quote-unquote problem, but I guess you can just surpass them by working extremely fucking hard. But I really think that just the excuse, okay, I'm not in this area, I don't have this stuff, I don't have the gear for doing it, is really just an excuse. It's just really not a reason for not starting or not doing what you're willing to do. It's really fucking not. It really is not. So Chris Sack's cabin in Truckee helped him get away from the valley noise and focus his priorities in addition to having a hangout spot people wanted to go to. Makes sense. I do really believe that there are certain people who do just not want all this noise. I'm just living, besides a street. For me, it's actually something that's, become fairly I became fairly used to it, I guess. It's just something that's there, and I'm not really complaining about it. I'm not even hearing it. I'm only hearing it actually when I'm going through an episode and I do just hear some car moving by. And it sometimes even bothers me because of that, because you can clearly hear it in the recording, which is something like, yeah, it's not that nice. It clearly is not that nice, but it's just really interesting that I'm not hearing it. I really don't. But if you're, listening to the recording, and I guess, even though, even if you might just go through the same exact episode for multiple times, I do believe that you just won't overhear it like I'm doing it. I think that you will just always hear it. Well, this would actually be an interesting kind of experiment to do. Well, I wouldn't do it because it's just wasting a lot of time, but it would be just really interesting if people actually would also kind of not hear certain things if it is actually recorded, because I somehow feel like this is something else, but I could just, I don't know. Similarly, Richard Branson's Necker Island is a beautiful vacation spot, letting him invite the likes of Barack Obama and Bill Gates and have an excuse to spend time with them. There is something to the idea of having a unique asset or skill that gives you a unique medium to hang out with people. Makes sense. Like, if people need what you have, the skill or the product or kind of the abilities, for sure they're going to come, But also with the assets, this is clearly an asset. Who the fuck has a fucking island? This guy has a fucking island. I do know Richard Branson. I guess the thing is, there are actually, I think, two people that are really, really pronounced so similarly that I always kind of just mix them up. And I guess there is one musician and there is one kind of author, I guess. But I'm really not sure. I'm really not sure. By the way, I do just have to turn off every single thing, like, going into plane mode. Because I feel like, and I think that you can actually hear it in the recording if I'm getting some notifications, which would definitely be not that nice. But yeah. So Sean White found practicing in Southern California to be superior to the typical Vermont or Colorado, or is it Vermont? I don't know. I think it's Vermont or Colorado, where the cold and hiking will crumble your spirit. Yeah, the spirit just makes a really big difference, I guess. Richard Betts, Master Sommelier, it is SOMMELIER, found two well-regarded chefs in Tucson. Since no one wants to move to Tucson, he realized that moving there would supercharge his learning. Makes sense. If there's actually some people that are just having the exact same skill that you are going to learn or you are willing to learn, it just makes sense to somehow just move to this certain area. Even though it might be pricey, I do think that, it could also make sense to just move because of that to Silicon Valley, because there is so much gratefulness, I guess, and there's so much success, and there is so much people, I guess, where you can just learn something from. It's just amazing, I guess, I'm really not that educated in that space, so I really do not know which companies are actually in Silicon Valley. I do think Google, for example, and Facebook and Apple might also be there. I've only read an article in the New York Times, actually, and I do just... Yeah, it's actually laying around there, and it was quite an interesting article. It's this one, it's the international edition though, so I do not know if there's some big difference behind or between those two, but this one's actually from May 28th, 2019, and the article was all about, it doesn't matter where you are, if you're not earning that much, or if you're not kind of educated, or if you do not have just high education like a lawyer or just some other people, then it just really doesn't matter whether you are at the place you are at the moment or if you're moving to Silicon Valley. The thing is, just some years ago, I think it was it 50 years ago or something? I don't remember. So just, I think quite a time ago, it clearly made a difference if you're just working in just a very rich and a very kind of job full state and or country and or city, you know. And because of that, a lot of people that were, for example, janitors, as they actually pointed it out, they moved to Silicon Valley, they moved to New York, they moved to all these places where a lot of work was and or is. And they were also able to just really, really, really earn way much more than they would have earned when they would have stayed at the place they were. And I guess it is just truly amazing that even though the housing costs were just, truly higher, I think they were actually able to kind of earn 27% more money or something. I don't know. But, the problem is, at this point in time, it is completely not the case. The thing actually is that if they would actually move to New York or Silicon Valley, as said, they actually compared it with Silicon Valley, so I should, probably refer to that. They said, okay, a janitor would actually lose 44 or 45 actually percent of his whole income, because all these housing costs are just way too high, for example, and also they are not just earning as much to actually compensate the housing costs. And yeah, it was just quite an interesting article. Maybe you can find it somewhere. Maybe you can just get the same exact kind of edition. I don't know, but it was actually pretty interesting, and also somehow sad. Even though maybe it's just kind of, okay, it makes sense. Or maybe, just all the experts and all the scientists just, they have known that's going to be this way in 2019, But yeah, let's move on to the next chapter, which is how to imagine the future. If you work in innovation of any kind, then you likely want to build for the future. How can you push the boundaries if you're thinking to arrive at big ideas? Titans who speak about imagining the future have a consistent theme of running against consensus. The biggest changes to the future may be things we don't currently expect. Here are the best quotes on innovation and boundary pushing from tools of Titans. The first one is from Jim Dater, which is actually, a person I don't actually know. Maybe he's actually just a really, really famous guy. I don't know, but he says, any useful statement about the future should at first seem ridiculous. And I do really think it was actually the case with several technology things like the iPhone, as they have, been speaking about it before, I guess. And I guess also with various other technological just innovation, ideas. I do think it's the same exact thing as the whole folding smartphone thing was just some years ago, and now it is somehow at least the reality. There are somehow some foldable smartphones, even though they are not publicly available. For sure, and I do think they're going to be available at least in my lifetime. I think that's sure. I hope that I'm actually going to live that long. This is, by the way, also one of the reasons why I value just being healthy so much, because I do want to see what's going on in the future, in terms of tech, and especially in terms of tech and maybe even the moon colonization and or Mars colonization would just be very, very interesting to see by myself. And I don't know if I would actually be able to see it if I'm fucking dead, because I clearly don't know what's going to happen after I'm dead. And this is also one of the reasons why I rather go for the long term and actually kind of, eat healthy and not eat, burgers and fries and just candies and whatsoever. Also, I do just have to say, even though it is clearly a long-term investment, for sure, it's also a short-term investment, because the thing is, and I do not know if people just don't realize, but if you eat healthy, you're feeling fucking good and you're not feeling tired. Really not, I think this is something that's just incredible about myself. On a physical base, I'm really not tired that often. Even though I'm sometimes even sleeping 6 hours a fucking day for a week, for sure, I'm not going to be as healthy as, I clearly recognize, okay, my health's going down, I'm feeling good, but I feel most often that my throat is somehow a little bit, is it scratchy? Or at least dry or something. So I clearly recognize it just, anyways. but I'm not getting ill. And this is just really something that I'm very fucking glad and grateful for, because I do just want to see what's going on in the future. And I think this is actually one of the things that I'm just really fucking looking forward to. And I do just have to remind myself on this just, I think, way more often. But let's go to the next quote from Alvin Toffler. It is far more important to be imaginative than to be right. I don't know, if what you're working sounds reasonable to most people, you may not be thinking creatively or innovatively enough. To do original work, it is not necessary to know something nobody else knows. It is necessary to believe something few other people believe. This was actually one of the things that I was kind of thinking about as I was starting, somehow as I was starting this whole journey and as I was just being in this journey, because I often thought should I do different videos? Should I do a different podcast? But I don't know. The thing is, I will never know the alternative. I will actually never know whether I should have or I should not have. It's going to be some way, and I do not know which way, but I guess it is okay this way. And even though I think this is not going to work or something, I'm not the judge. I'm really not, and I shouldn't be the judge of my work. Somehow, because we sometimes are really judging our work just really, really fucking poorly. I've actually made an episode on this, I've been talking about this on an episode actually, which was based on an article from the JamesClear.com website, so James Clear, the author, and it was about Martha Graham and her story and whatsoever. It was just really fucking interesting. I've just really enjoyed this fucking article. It was just extremely great. It really was. So this quote was actually by Mark Andreessen. The difference between a billionaire and a non-billionaire not accepting the norms of your time, by Neil Strauss. So the difference between billionaire and a non-billionaire is not accepting the norms of your time. Does this mean you think you do not want to waste your time with something, and you clearly somehow have to, because you do just have to build your fucking craft and you just have to get starting, and for sure it's going to be a lot of fucking time you're going to put into your fucking shit. It's something that I clearly recognize myself. I've been doing 300 fucking episodes of this podcast right now, which is amazing. And I just truly, I'm just really grateful that I'm actually reminding myself on that. I do just really have to thank you for actually being with me on this journey, because it is amazing for me. It really is amazing, and I just truly love what I'm doing here. Sometimes I don't, but I've been, talking about it before. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes it's feeling I gotta have to do this but most of the time, I guess it's just really fun. It just really is fun, especially when I can just see, there is progress in what I am doing, and also in terms of my personal development, in terms of the English thing, and also the knowledge that I'm getting through actually reading some really valuable books or articles and whatsoever. So it's just a win-win. It's a win for me, and it's I think a win for other people, because I might be producing content that might be watched in a few years. But I don't know. I really don't. I'm going to try it. I'm going to see, and I'm hopefully not going to doubt. I'm not going to kind of think I've been trying it for 2 years, for 3 years, for 5 years. I haven't took off. What's happening? And there's so many people, the really big people, they're doing their craft, they're doing the whole YouTube and social media thing for 10 fucking years, or 8 or 5 or 6 or 7, and now for sure, they are, really known on these platforms and whatsoever, which is great, I guess, which is really great. They really deserve it. If you're doing something for such a long time, I think you just deserve it. But it just takes some time. It really takes some time. When 99% of people doubt you, you are either gravely wrong or about to make history. From Scott Belsky, which is actually a really great quote. I've heard it before. I don't know if it is actually, if I've actually read it in this summary, because I've went through this on my leisure time, or in my leisure time. because I needed some information for postings. So I just went through it because I knew, okay, there might be something great in it. 5 billion new consumers are coming online in the next 6 years. And what do you need? So what do they need? From Peter Diamandis, whatever. I do not know if this is actually right. If 5 billion consumers are coming to us in the next 6 years, probably might be true, because we are just really growing, we as a human species, and we as a just amount of human beings on this fucking planet. We are just constantly growing. It's just amazing. Like, just we are. I do just really have to look that up. World population. Let's see, 7.53 billion. And this is in 2017. Just notice 2017, by the way. Yeah, I should probably do it like this. So 2017, in 1960, which is 57 years ago, if I calculated it correctly, we've been at 3 billion people. And now we've more than doubled it. And it's just exponentially growing. Like, it's going to grow and grow and grow and grow and grow and grow and grow, and even, or just faster and faster and faster, because it truly is exponential. The more people we get, the more people we are going to get, or we are going to be, or something. I don't know. So you get paid for being right first and to be first. You can't wait for consensus. From Naval Ravikant. Again, from Naval Ravikant or Ravikant, or however he's actually pronounced. He seems to be actually to be a pretty important person, I guess. What can you do that will be remembered in 200 to 400 years? Shackleton sniff test, if this is the most audacious endeavor I could possibly convince of. So the Shackleton sniff test, quote unquote, is this the most audacious endeavor I could possibly conceive of? I don't actually know, which is actually get pregnant. Endeavor means try. Audacious is actually bold. Yeah, I don't actually know what this fucking sentence is meaning. But yeah, I'll just go on, I guess. I don't really want to waste my and your time actually somehow trying to get the knowledge behind it, maybe, even though it might be useful. But just, write it down in the comments or DM me or something. Would be just extremely nice, would actually be extremely fucking nice. It is good not to follow the herd. Go the other way. You're gonna stumble, but at least it's a new frontier, from Rob Rodriguez. Stress testing ideas, and this was actually a pretty heavy and also big part in, I think it actually was in Ray Dalio's Principles, but I really do not remember. It's actually a little bit sad, to be honest, that I'm not really kind of like remembering so many things. I don't know, and I've actually just really switched my desktop, by the way. If you have seen this, there might be some kind of shaking things or something, because I do somehow feel like, because I do just have myself on the screen, and I do just really often just look myself into the eyes, which is just really somehow weird, because then I would just be talking to myself, but I really think that it is better if I'm not seeing myself. This was actually something that I've been thinking about before. I've had several setups on how I actually record the videos. And I somehow, sometimes found like, okay, it's better when I see myself. It sometimes really is better because I can, change up all the settings that I'm having and with the screens and whatsoever. But in terms of the talking part, and I think in terms of the maybe even entertaining part, it might be a little bit better if I'm not seeing myself. Like, maybe I should actually kind of make my, what? I think I'm gonna make the screen so, yeah. I just, can I actually show you this? This would actually be very nice. Like, I would really like to show you this. I've just compromised the fucking screen where I'm actually seeing myself. I've just compromised so heavily. You know, it's so fucking small at the moment. It is really like, let's see. It's half the tip of the fucking, earpods from Apple. Like, it's like this. I'm just really showing you my really dirty fucking earpods. Never mind. But it's just really small, and I guess it could actually, help me to stay present or something. But I'm also actually seeing, I'm clearly also seeing just the screens and whatsoever, so it is good. Maybe it's even way worse because I do just really have to focus on where I'm having to look, but never fucking mind. And I also don't see whether I'm in the middle of the screen. Yeah, it's gonna be okay. Stress testing ideas. By yourself, you're unlikely to find the very best solution or see the entire picture. You need other people to stress test your ideas. If it survives the trial by fire, then it is a good idea. If it doesn't, you have just saved yourself a lot of time. Actually pretty true. And I do really think that it is just very important that you are actually letting it stress test by another person. Like, this is something that I clearly see when I'm designing something, like whether it be a logo, whether it be some brochure, or whether it be some flyer or something. I, as a designer, often do not realize that this certain thing is not working. And if it is not working, okay, it can just look as nice as possible, but it's still not going to just be great because it's not working. It's the exact same thing as, okay, if you're building a stool or if you're building a chair, and if it's not being able to kind of stay or stand actually, then it is useless. Even though it looks great, even though it's out of bamboo or it's just something very kind of, I don't know, like something that's incredibly valuable or something. If you can't fucking sit on this fucking stool, it is just worth shit. It really is. Like, why? Like, I don't know. I really don't. But let's see and go on. I actually feel a little bit better if I'm not seeing myself all the fucking time, it's pretty weird, to be honest. Can I even make it smaller? No, I can't. Well, I can. This is now the smallest it can get. It is pretty great like this. I would say, even though, can I? No, I cannot. Never mind. I'll just go on. So whenever whoever Ben actually is, brings an ideal, I just beat the shit. I just beat the shit out of it. I might think it is the best idea I've ever heard of, but I'll just trash the crap out of it and try to get everybody else to pile on. And then at the end of it, if he is still pounding the table saying, no, this is that thing, then we say we are all in, and it's the torture test. So it's the torture test, which is again from Mark Andreessen, again from the exact same person. Pretty interesting. Like, there are certain people that are just, really often in this summary. Some are not. But I really like this one. Also because of the case, because it's just a little bit like, with the whole swearing part and so on. I kind of find that funny. I don't know. Like, is this just my humor or something? I'll go on. So how do you know if you have A players on your project team? You know it if they don't accept the strategy you hand them. They should suggest modifications to the plan based on their closeness to the details, which really makes sense. Like, if you're a boss, you clearly should know all the fucking details of it. And if you're a manager, you probably should also just know a lot of details. But I truly think that if you're giving a worker plan and they say like, okay, we're not going to finish it by this date, even though you can push them whatsoever, or it is not possible doing it this way because we need this and that, and it's not possible in this time span because actually getting these materials that we actually need just takes a lot of fucking time. I truly think that it just makes sense if that you're actually kind of communicating with the people that are nearest to this sort of problem that you're trying to solve as possible, like as near as possible. I ran into Jeff Bezos a bit later and was saying I just got to talk with Elon Musk and or Elon, really, and I'm excited or super excited about Mars. I really hope that one day I can go and Bezos looked at me and goes, Mars is stupid. Once we get off the planet, the last thing we want to do is to go to another gravity. We should just live on space stations and mine asteroids, and everything is much better than being on Mars. From Phil Libben, questioned commonly held goals and beliefs. Well, I don't know, like, from which date this actually is, or this quote actually is, because, as far as I know, Jeff Bezos is actually trying to get to the moon and live there and colonize moon. So I really don't know whether this is actually what he said, if this is true or not. I clearly can't say. I really can't. Let's make another one. Let's make the last two things. The military uses red teams to challenge plans. How would you disrupt this plan, or how would you defeat this plan? From Stanley McChrystal. Actually makes sense. Like the whole testing thing and whatsoever, it makes sense. Put away your moral compass when evaluating ideas. For example, the cause of air quality doesn't automatically have to do with corporate greed. Jumping to conclusion will cause mistakes and avoid the best solutions. From Stephen Dubner or whatever. But this actually is, and I'm now afterwards going to shower while I'm actually uploading this episode. I kind of changed up my whole kind of pattern, my whole kind of habitual routine, I would say. Normally I just shower and then I'm recording, but today I decided, okay, I'm going to record, and while I'm showering I'm actually going to upload this one, so that I'm trying to somehow just save some time. I don't know if this is working. I really don't. I'm going to see. It just really comes up to how fast I am with showering. But yeah, I still wish you the best health, wealth, happiness, and success. And I'm really, really seeing it now, that I'm acting differently if I'm not seeing my fucking self. I'm just, I think, a little bit more like moving, if you want so. Which is great, which is, I think, extremely great. But yeah, especially because I will never ever, I guess, just have a look at my own videos. Only parts of it maybe, when I do just really decide that I'm going to cut out certain parts that are very valuable and I'm going to post them on social media, which really makes sense, but I'm not doing it because it's really faster for me to actually create some new postings, and it is actually great because I can just, design something, which is just great because I like it. I also hope that you're going to remind yourself on how you're going to be remembered, which means your legacy. Whether you're going to be remembered as a good person or as a bad person is definitely in your hands, and only in your hands, because you decide, because it's your life. Even though, okay, people think about you just in various different ways, even though you might be the nicest fucking dude on this fucking planet, but you're still having it in your fucking hands. With that being said, I wish you just the best. I see you, and thank you very much from the bottom of my fucking heart for 300 accompanied podcasts, and actually 301 because this is the 301th episode. I really have to thank you. And I also have to thank you for actually watching this and listening to this, and I see you.